Q&A with WAPTEK, late night, roadside service, bittersweet job. There we go. Claims, statements, and assertions I'm going to leave on my desktop because I can do a video on them later. Some of them mention one subject or another, and I'm going to probably do a video on them. So here we go. First assertion, this is some hyperbole. Well, the 2,000 different particles and the billion-year-old half-lives make the people who want nuclear mentally brain damaged. They are simply too stupid to grasp what they are doing. As opposed to the person who left this point, who doesn't understand that a person who designs and builds a nuclear power plant and studies physics might actually know what they're doing compared to a person who's just simply refuting what they know. That's all you're doing. And the fact that you think there's 2,000 different particles, and you're not specifying what the heck you mean by that, and you might want to look up the actual half-life of radioactive material. Non-radioactive material has longer half-lives. A half-life that's long doesn't mean it's more dangerous, it just means that it has a longer half-life. Oxygen has a very long half-life. Uranium and plutonium have shorter half-lives. Your argument's invalid because you're demonstrating you don't have the qualifications to talk. Alien life around geothermal vents, totally plausible, and wouldn't require the sweet spot of the Goldilocks zone. I freaking forgot about that, because that's one of the bases for us looking around on the ice flows that might exist on Mars. Thank you. I think this was Mr. Rourke. Next. Okay. Here we go. Now, this is from a person that I don't want to be mean to, but I'm going to be looking into it. I don't know if these are valid, but I'm going to say them. Dr. Hynek of Project Blue Book, I'm assuming is what he's referring to, changed into a believer. Ted Phelps and him did plenty of investigations where they found trace evidences. Okay, I'm going to cover this subject of evidence in a minute. The Disclosure Project, with 500 witnesses from military, government, etc., put their reputations on the line to tell their stories. There is evidence. Well, we'll get again to the word evidence, and I'll be covering that in a minute. Next, a set of assertions. Everyone spread the word. Hillary did not win the popular vote, even though this is based on counting the ballots. As many as 1.5 million illegal aliens. I already covered that in a video today. This is your response. That's an estimate based on the idea that every single Latin American person in California is an illegal alien. It's not based on actually counting illegal aliens getting to vote. They didn't vote because they're not allowed to. Nobody signed them up en masse. You'd have to prove that they were. You'd have to find at least 2 or 3 illegal aliens that got a driver's license, which states right on it that it's not a license that allows you to be able to get the right to vote. Because I have that in the icon for the video, it actually says some federal restrictions are required, and that the state does not permit you to vote if you're not an American citizen. Overtly. It just says it. You're just contradicting laws and facts, just like everybody else who posts this stuff. They all voted for Hillary, so now you're saying that every single illegal alien voted for one person. I guess you're going to do the busing them in thing, right? Our idiot for President Obama told them it was okay to break federal law. He may have said that about a lot of things, but he didn't say it about voting, because he did not. Not one of those votes counts, really. So you're going to invalidate the state of California on your say-so and the memes that you've been picking up on websites that repeated that. I didn't want to bring this up, but if you look up, election rigging, you'll see insane levels of bias on some pages talking about it happening, and other pages that actually are very critical of Hillary Clinton and Obama, telling you factually, yeah, this is a bullcrap meme, this is a waste of time, move on. These people are guilty of doing a bunch of things, but no, you got to bring up the stuff they didn't do and throw it in people's faces who post a video explaining how this actually works. Not one of those votes counts. Anyway, they shall be withdrawn from the official count. So you're stating that the official count actually says that she won the popular vote, but you're saying it doesn't. You're literally just shotgunning it. You're throwing every possible way to shoot down a meme. Okay, I'm going to explain this. Last night, someone almost punched me in the face for agreeing with them about the President of the United States being Donald Trump. he kept listening to me agree to him and got angry at me because he isn't thinking and he's in a rage because he won. I think there's a permanent state of histrionic behavior on the Republican Party sometimes. I'm not going to be able to talk to some people until they stop doing this. I know 2 or 3 people who are avoiding this place because they know they'll flip out on me because they won the election. I guess I'll get to that in a minute, but let's get to the proof idea here. Thanks a lot for addressing my questions. Got a few more. Sorry. Space travel. Simply direct to point A to point B. Are there any wormholes out there or any evidence? Wormholes are mostly hypothetical. This is one of those things where it should exist, it could exist, and we should be seeing certain behaviors, but it's like a lot of phenomena. It'll either be to where it's a phenomenon that would happen, we'd have to catch it and be lucky, or we should be seeing it already. There's no evidence currently for wormholes happening. And if they do happen, even hypothetically, most models in the universe show that they would just be really worthless to us. The only thing they'd be useful for is causing aberrations in a recording on an audio tape or something. That's about it. They might be one of the clicks and pops you heard when you were listening to Bob Dylan one day. Next, the asteroid belt. Was it a planet that collided with something? Why do you think it hasn't accumulated back to a planet? Does the gravity from Jupiter keep it from happening? Okay, now this is an interesting one because Jupiter has the effect of sweeping things. It gets hit by stuff, and our solar system tends to not really get things from the top and bottom much. But the most likely thing is that, well, if you count up the actual tonnage of material, it's just a little bit lower for the entire asteroid belt than something that would form a planet. That's the last time I checked. Now, I had a video on this and had the notes on it, but it's gone, so I'm going to do a video on this. But thanks for the question. Next. He who will remain nameless talks about the Eye of Sahara being the result of a huge electrical discharge resulting from a flyby of some foreign object and a static plasma discharge between the two. So the Earth was zapped in a big bug zapper kind of thing. A plasma discharge requires a medium for the discharge. A vacuum like space doesn't allow for that. It has to be some sort of gas. On an insanely grand scale, you can have filament-like activity in space, but it's barely detectable, and you'd have to be right next to a collapsing star for it to have enough energy to do that. Plasma requires a medium, and the hydrogen gas in space is a minimum. The atoms are an inch apart, and interstellar space they're even further, and intergalactic space they may be this far apart. They're not close enough together to have streams of energy move. And this also means that you cannot have an electric universe model where there's streams of energy zapping between planets. Static electric charges and magnetic fields and gravity all seem to behave similar ways, and you can use these for experimenting, but electrostatic charges and magnetic fields all have polarity, and that polarity kind of gets in the way of that working. So that is not likely at all. As for that object in the Sahara, I'm going to look it up and do a video on it because it's an interesting subject. Next, what's your opinion on the origin of the landmark itself? That'll be a good video. Next, next one was the Great Pyramids. Are they just burial tombs? Are there antennas pointed at Orion? Were they just a high spot to protect from flooding? What are they? The basic consensus, and this is from people who study this. I have a relative who studied Egyptology and archaeology. These were public works projects done to reinforce the idea of Pharaoh being some sort of godlike being that's appointed to rule the world. That's the way kings do things. They say, and there's a dynasty, and there's this progression of inheriting this position. It's the same thing. These were very large-scale public works projects for building basically a city center and a center of power as a symbol of power. And also the meme about them, the belief system about them, is that these things were for producing conditions to cause a person to go up into heaven, to go up into space. This is a very, very simple idea, and it's professed in their own writings in hieroglyphics, which I used to know how to read properly. As for it being some sort of transmitter or receiver, it's the wrong shape for any of that, in fact, at all. Even the shape of the pyramid shape would work kind of for one direction only, and it would effectively produce interference patterns. It'd be good for doing location of something, or constructive or destructive interference, but that's about it. Maybe they just did the great floods and wanted a high spot. There are actual areas nearby that are higher, and the area at one time had forests, so the likelihood of that is pretty low. Also, the skin may have been made of quartz plates, which are not there anymore. That is an interesting subject. As for a top cap of gold or copper, these are things that I've heard as well, but the most likely answer, and this is the thing, is there's very little data and materials left, is that it was covered with a white layer of basically some kind of sandstone or soapstone. I mean, I don't know what it was. I can look it up and I'll do a vid on it. The trouble is that it's whatever current information is available, and the information doesn't just replace the old information so it's all wrong, it adds to it when it comes to archaeology most of the time, and in this case, this area has been studied a lot. Obviously they would have made it a bright white color, some other color, so that it would show up, and they may have even painted it for festivals. Next. Next one was, and this is the Bigfoot story about the Patterson-Gimel film. Yeah, and its analysis and that sort of thing. I'm one of the many people who sat down and image stabilized and motion stabilized the film. I participated in this project during 1 year, and then later on a computer. It took 8 hours for me to do it as cleanly as possible, and then I created a background and then drew it over it so that you have a background and you're walking over it. I never finished it. I might actually make that happen and put it up on the net somewhere. I had it up on the net for about 2 years at one point. It might even still be up there. You can look it up, just WAPTEK Bigfoot, you might find it, or just WAPFoot. Next, some people think it's a real deal. The thing is that it is not hard to fake that. To be blunt, my analysis, along with everybody else who isn't trying to make a buck off the myth and keep it going, there's no reason to believe that it's a real animal that is in those areas, for two reasons. The filming of it was done by people who went out of their way to make sure they were vague about a location that they said they knew well, and later on they changed their stories a couple of times. Number two, there are several people who claimed that they know that it was faked and they can prove it at one point, or they had that information. Next, other people have sat down and actually reproduced this effect fairly nicely. Next, the fact that you can find the skeleton for one of our ancestors for over 1 million years ago in the ground in a river that direction about 50 miles, but you can't find a Bigfoot skeleton. The materials that the bodies are made out of do decay over time and do get replaced and mineralized, but no skeletons. Period. End of statement. The ones that are found, the people, well, that's not an ancient creature, that's actually Bigfoot. No, it isn't, because you can tell whether or not it's old or new. You can date these, and it's not just doing it by carbon-14 dating. It's done by figuring out what its material is made out of. Bone is made out of something different than stone or minerals. So, next. Next. Gotta do this one here. Did Trump steal the votes from Hillary in North Carolina? I already did a video on that, so I've already answered that in that video. Let's see if I can get the rest of this done. The existence, our existence being a simulation. I'm going to be doing a video on this where I touch on that subject, touch on the practicality of it, and touch on a recent YouTube series that I had fun watching, as well as the movie The Matrix and Fight Club. I'm going to throw them all together because they all have to do with what is real and what is perception. I might touch on lots of movies. The reason I'm going to be touching on that is those are our best examples of people analyzing or at least mulling over these ideas, and that's worth discussing. Next, many people have done ideas and studies and thought problems on this sort of subject. And I'm going to be using them for sources. And my own personal opinion, there are things in our universe that would be able to indicate to us whether or not this is a falsehood or simulation. For the same reason that a virtual computer system faking on my computer being a Macintosh, I can run a program that can detect that, maybe. I'll be doing that as a thought experiment video. That's all I can do for now. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with all that. And I'll put all the information below in the video.